Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. I'm your host, Clayton Fletcher, here in New York City, joined by the legendary Twitch master himself, the founder and king head honcho of Tournament Poker Edge, Derek Tenbusch. Mr. Killingbird, how are you?
I am doing fantastic, Clayton. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just happy to still have a job. I mean, those of you who follow on the Twitch stream know that I was actually out here in the streets, as you like to say, Derek, playing a little No Limit Texas Hold'em tournament on a site that we like to call America's Card Room, and I ended up at your table. And why don't you tell people how that turned out?
Yeah, I was so excited because so I think when we both got at the table, it's the first time that I can really recall being at a table with you. Other than I think we were at maybe like either the TPE tournament or maybe something else, because I did have like 80 hands on you or something. So I just assumed they probably came from the TPE 10-year anniversary tournament.
That's what it was, yeah.
Yeah, but this was the first time I can recall being like, oh, there's Clayton finally, and you were kind of short at my table, and I was like, oh shit, he's gonna like bust or something, and then like I'm never gonna get a chance to play with him. But then you like pretty much instantly doubled up, and so we both had like 40 bigs or something, and I was like, okay, we could really have a spot here, and you were directly on my right, so like we could really find like a good hand, like, you know, maybe something for the podcast. And I swear to God, like you were playing a lot of hands. You were very active. You were raising. You know, you were being Clayton, the Clayton that we know and love.
Yes.
And I was just over there folding 9-deuce off and 6-4 off. Like I was just folding. And then I think finally, maybe there was like an open, and I think you flatted, and I shoved like King Jack suited or something. And you called, and I was like, I just want to double up so we can play a hand together. But no, you ended up winning the flip. I think it was like sixes versus my King Jack or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And I snap re-entered, hoping that I would get back at your table, but I didn't. So it was just like the dream was gone. There was no chance to play a hand together. And yeah, so that hand was not interesting at all, unfortunately. But I really was hoping we would get something fun to review, but no such luck.
The hand itself was a pretty standard flip, I think, but the fun part came later on Twitter when I wasn't really sure whether or not you were joking about me being fired.
Yeah. I was like, because you said, you replied something to my tweet like, I don't think we really played any interesting hands, right? And I go, no, just the one where you knocked me out of the tournament.
I was like, oops, bad career move. So, but yeah, I mean, I've been trying to play more. And one reason I was playing more was, as you know, Alex Fitzgerald, TPE coach, the Assassinato, the famous Alex Fitzgerald, he and I did commentary for something called the World College Poker Final Table. So it's a brand new thing that they started. It's not gambling. If you're in college and you belong to a college poker club, you can join this online thing. It's on Poker Bros, and it's called College Poker. And they had over 1,000 entries, and we did live commentary on Twitch and on YouTube for their final table, which was a really good time. I mean, we had a blast with it, but it was extra hard because I don't think that I've ever done cards down commentary before, so it was a little tricky. Yeah, they were doing it in real time, so we couldn't actually show what any of the players had, but Alex is so smart and so sharp when it comes to poker. He was just doing his expert hand reading, and I was just making my corny jokes, and people seem to enjoy it.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool that you were doing that because I had just recently done a thing, just kind of randomly. I met a guy at a Twitch meetup back in like January, like pre-COVID.
Yeah.
There was like a Raleigh Twitch meetup group, and kind of everybody's kind of walking around like, oh, what do you play? What do you play? And most people are like, oh, I play, Fortnite, or I play this. And this guy came up and asked me, I'm like, oh, I just stream poker. And he's like, oh, I stream poker. And it turned out he runs like the North Carolina NC State University like poker club.
Cool.
So he asked me to come and like do like a little. They have like I think a once a month sort of like Zoom meetup, where they like talk strategy and they play a tournament or whatever. So they asked me to come in and talk, and it was really cool because I don't feel that old. But like talking to these guys, I'm realizing like, well, these are like, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, right? Who are just, I mean, maybe not, I don't know exactly their experience level, but I'm assuming since they're in college, they're probably pretty much just learning the game of poker or perfecting the game of poker maybe. And it was so cool to like just talk to people who are like young and like untainted, and they're not bitter, they're not jaded by like, having played live poker for 15 years or whatever. They don't even know what Black Friday is, They're just like young, pure-hearted poker players. And it was really cool. And I know you didn't probably get a chance to like talk to the players in the tournament, but it's still kind of cool that you got to like watch young kids play poker. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. Actually, we did get to interview the winner of the tournament,
nice.
So I got to talk to him a little bit, and he was also president of I believe it was the Ohio State Poker Club.
Nice.
So it seems like these poker clubs, they got some sharks in those waters. So yeah, be careful. No, he played great. There were a few really interesting hands and interesting spots, and Alex had, of course, amazing insight. You guys can find this on YouTube if you just look for World College Poker. It's the only final table that they've had so far. They do have big plans for it, though, and it looks like it might be taking off. They were so happy with the just the turnout and the amount of interest that they were able to attract. And they have all kinds of partners, Card Player Magazine, Poker Bros, like all these different things. So it was super fun. But yeah, that youthful energy, that lack of bitterness, was kind of fun to be around. But at one point, Alex made a comment about the moneymaker boom, and I said half the viewers are like, "What's the moneymaker boom?"
I know, it's so crazy to think about. Like those guys, I'm sure some of them have like watched, the old World Series episodes or whatever, but I don't think unless you were there when that happened that you can really fully understand the impact of that World Series.
It's like you and me with the Beatles. Like we know the Beatles were a thing, but I think we're both a little too young to remember like when they were such a thing. So yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm sure they were great, Mom.
Yeah. It's like you old people talking about the Beatles. I never got into the Beatles. People just, the people that love them, they basically worship them. Like, this is the greatest band of all time. And I'm like, I play bass. Paul McCartney, he doesn't really know how to play the bass. Sorry, you get shot for saying that, but.
I know.
Yeah. So what else is happening with you? How's the business?
Man, everything is so good. It's really interesting. Like, I mean, I feel like every time we get on, we always have to do a little bit of like a life in the COVID era update.
Of course.
And it's really interesting because I feel like we're moving into a new time now where, the vaccine is kind of on the horizon, but also at the same time, like the honeymoon period that was the summer is kind of over. Like I don't know, like it depends on where you live and your lifestyle and stuff, but I know for my family, like when everything was happening in the summertime, we kind of tried to turn a really shitty situation into kind of a fun situation. So we bought like a grill in a fireplace a fire pit and like an inflatable pool, and we were just having like backyard barbecues and stuff because you couldn't go anywhere, right? So it's just like, well, I guess we'll just make our backyard into a party. But now that it's getting cold out, like I didn't really think I would feel the effects of it. But I think I kind of am. Like I'm starting to get a little bit stir crazy. I'm like, shit, now it's like you can't even go outside for more than 30 minutes. And so now 5-6 days goes by and I don't leave my house. Like I went out to start my car the other day and it wouldn't start. And I'm like, oh, apparently you're supposed to start your car more than once every 2 weeks.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's a thing.
So I really, and I live in like somewhat of a warmer climate. I mean, I'm in North Carolina, so it's it's not like I'm in Florida, but I'm also not in Buffalo. So I start to worry about like people who are living in like the upper Midwest or New York in your case. Like we're about to go into like a weird dark winter, And so yeah, I mean, not to make it all doom and gloom, but I'm just like, okay, how do I mentally like prepare myself to like lock it down again for a few more months here while we roll out this vaccine and stuff, you know?
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like, it feels like there's a light at the end of the tunnel because we are getting good news about this vaccine's approved and that one works and stuff like that. But, you know, realistically, the amount of time it's going to take for enough people to be vaccinated, it's going to take quite a while. And we are getting to the colder months. For example, here in New York City, we got like something like 10 inches of snow today as we're recording this on Thursday. So yeah, it feels like we're going to have to like hunker down for a long winter, like some kind of quote from Game of Thrones or something. But
Yeah.
Winter is coming, and I mean, yeah, it's if the weather breaks a little bit again, I recommend people get outside and try to just get a little bit of, you know, outdoor time if you can, because it does appear that it might end up being just a rough winter, you know. But I'm always thankful for poker because it is something you can do at home online. And, you know, I was joking about being just another shill for ACR because, you know, I cashed in something the other day and I posted it and whatever. People were giving me a hard time, like, oh, the site's totally rigged or whatever. You know, we're gonna work this shill thing until we die, I think, because it's just too good.
Oh yeah, it's never going away.
Yeah, it's too good. But, you know, that is one thing. And another piece of good news is High Stakes Poker is back on Poker Go. And the commentary is by Gabe Kaplan and AJ Benza, like it's 10 years ago. So that's pretty awesome.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it just relaunched this week. And, you know, I'll be honest, I was kind of campaigning to take over as host when I heard that they were doing the show again. I was like, you know, Gabe Kaplan's a comedian. I'm a comedian, you know. I didn't know they were going to be able to get the original guys back. So, I mean, I think if you can get Gabe and AJ, obviously, you know, just having those familiar voices with the familiar music. Of course, it's a different set because they're doing it at the Poker Go studios at the Aria in Vegas. But, you know, some of the same players, you know, JRB, Tom Dwan. Yeah, there's nothing like watching a high-stakes cash game with good action, and they've only released one episode so far, but I mean, I would say it's worth the Poker Go subscription just to be able to kind of wax nostalgic about the good old days of high-stakes poker on Game Show Network, and now it's finally on Poker Go. I know they were working on getting it for quite a while, and obviously they had to fight some sort of legal battle to get it all, you know, whatever. Whenever, you know, for people who don't know, whenever one network owns the rights to a show, even if that show is off the air, sometimes there's a little bit of red tape to, you know, just make it possible for you to have the show on your network instead. So they probably had to go back and forth with negotiating what the fee would be or whatever. But whatever they paid, I mean, the poker community is very excited for that. So, you know, just hunker down, drink some hot cocoa, watch the snow fall, and listen to Gabe Kaplan, who is, to me, the all-time greatest poker commentator because he's so funny, but he's also pretty sharp. He does understand the game.
Yeah, and I don't think I even realized when I first started watching poker where Gabe was doing the commentary, I didn't realize how deeply entrenched he was in like the old school Vegas poker community. Like if you were watching it, you didn't know, you'd be like, oh well, you know, he's the guy from Welcome Back, Kotter, and he's funny, so they have him on here. But he used to play like a lot of poker with all the people we know, like back in the day. So he's like the perfect guy to have.
Yeah, I mean, to be able to find an excellent comedian who's also really knowledgeable about the game. I mean, I basically was waiting for him to retire so that I could try to get that job myself. But yeah, he came out of retirement for this one. He hasn't done poker commentary probably.
Well, I'm excited. I'll have to tune into that.
Yeah, check it out. Yeah, because Gabe probably hasn't done any poker commentary since 10 years ago when High Stakes Poker ended the first time. So it's really fun, and just hearing that sort of electric piano music. You know, I mean, you're a musician, so you know, like to me, like a lot of what makes a show is like kind of the noise, and that show has very distinctive sound, and just, you know, him and AJ, he kind of picks on AJ. They have a really cool dynamic. So, and of course the poker action is great. Rick Solomon's at the table, so you know there's going to be action. So,
nice.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I think people are pretty pumped up for that, which coincides with the break that Negreanu and Polk are taking so that Negreanu could play in the World Series of Poker main event number 7. Like, how many main events are we having this year anyway?
I know. Yeah, because I know you've been, you've kind of been updating the listeners on the Polk versus Negreanu battle, and I'm kind of curious what you think, because I think both you and I are somewhat similar in that we are primarily tournament players. Although I know you've been playing a decent amount of PLO cash lately.
Yeah.
But I've tuned into some of the grudge match streams. Yeah. And man, I just can't find. And I feel like this is becoming a little bit of a common thread with me, but I just can't find myself getting into it because I don't play cash games and I don't play heads up. And I think because, and I hate to say this, but because it doesn't seem like a very close match, I'm just having a really hard time getting enthralled by it. Like, it feels like it's just, it's like Mayweather versus Jake Paul or whoever the guy is he's going to fight. It's going to be like that where he just punches him in the face 30 times a round for 12 rounds and then collects his cash and walks away.
No.
I'm just like, ugh.
You're right. It was a lot more fun when Negreanu kind of got off to a good start. He was actually winning early, and people were like, wow, is he going to be able to do it? I mean, this is a total underdog story, and even Negreanu admits very freely that he's clearly an underdog even before the match started. He said just the question is, am I a 4-1 underdog? Am I a 5-1 underdog? A 10-1 underdog? Who knows? But, at this point, when Doug is outplaying him and he's also running hot as can be, it's kind of no fun. But, yeah, I mean, I don't really play a lot of No Limit Hold'em cash games, and I hardly ever play any heads-up No Limit Hold'em, although I did play a little $1, $2 No Limit against Doug when he was getting ready. He was kind of taking whatever action he could get when he was tuning up for the match. So I sat with him for a while. I think he beat me out of 1 or 2 buy-ins. We just played probably 100 or 200 hands. So that was kind of an experience. But most of the heads up no limit I've played is sick brag, but at the final table,
Right.
And of course it's different because usually by then you only have a few blinds. These guys are playing 100 big blinds deep, so it's just a different game. And heads up is just, even if you are really into cash games, if you're not into heads up cash games, watching 2 guys play cards down, right? Almost all the streaming has been cards down, and it's heads up, and one guy is clearly way better than the other. It's not that intriguing, but for me, I have enjoyed a lot of the commentary, particularly on the Upswing site and on YouTube. Our friend Jeff Platt, Jeff, he's been doing some commentary for Negreanu's side, but it's weird how there's it's almost like the news nowadays. I think I was saying this on a recent podcast. You either get your news from the left or from the right. I would love for someone to just truly be in the center and just tell me what's happening instead of come on Doug or come on Daniel. But yeah, we're not going to get that maybe ever again.
Yeah, I went over to, I think I was going to the Upswing. I think it was on the Upswing Twitch channel or something, and they had the they had the tags, the fish and the shark tags.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I already know this is biased because they just had Doug with the shark tag and they had Daniel with the fish tag, and I'm like, okay, well, this is biased.
Yeah.
But probably not completely inaccurate, but kind of biased.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're not wrong. But, Doug has actually been saying recently that Daniel is playing well, and he feels like he's trolling because he's killing it. He's up almost $1 million. So how can you say the other guy's playing well? But when it comes to heads up, so many sessions will just boil down to a few big hands where both of you have a really big hand. Even with 100 blinds heads up, it's probably okay to get all in with tens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think I saw a tweet from Daniel, and I don't know if it was fact checked or not, but where he said something like he got it in 25 times all in pre-flop behind and won 0 of them.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's running pretty bad.
Yeah. He's been ice cold, yeah.
Yeah. And will it change things in the long run outcome? Probably not, but that is running pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, no one's taken my bet. I'm willing to make a large bet that Daniel doesn't stop the match after 12,500 hands, because part of the rules of this challenge is that halfway through it, whoever's behind, and it's pretty clear that will be Daniel. Whoever is behind has the right to say, okay, I wave the white flag. We're not going to play all 25,000 hands. We're just going to call the match now. I don't think Daniel would ever do that because he's got too many people that are counting on him to pull this thing out. Like a lot of his friends made really big bets on him. So
yeah,
it's
I was curious about that too, and I think you were right. I think you've said it in a couple podcasts that he'll do it if for no other reason than to satisfy the people who bet on it.
Yeah,
and let's be honest, Daniel can probably afford to lose the money.
Oh yeah, he's not crying.
You know,
he gets frustrated because of the grudge thing, and because Doug has always been, so just critical of him, just sometimes fairly and sometimes I think not so fairly. But Doug is, obviously not a Daniel lover. So, but yeah, it's fun to watch them play. But I do wish we could get a little bit more cards up. It's actually more fun to me to watch the analysis that both of them are doing afterwards, where they're both making videos highlighting kind of the interesting hands, because not playing a ton of heads up cash myself, it's kind of fun to what is the thought process and how is that different? When any two will do, what's good and what's bad, it's hard to know.
Yeah, I was a little bummed because when I tuned in the other day, Olivier Bousquet was doing commentary, and he's one of my favorite analytical commentators. I love the color guys too, but he's one of my favorite strategical. Is that even a word? Strategic commentators. But it's so hard for him to do his job when he can't see the cards.
Yeah.
He's just kind of like, oh, well, that was an interesting hand, And I was like, oh, we're just wasting Olivier Bousquet's skills here.
Yeah, because he can only kind of speculate. And when one of the players is, what, the third or fourth most winningest poker player of all time, Daniel, and another one spent years at the very top of the Heads Up No Limit rankings, Olivier isn't really going to be able to pick up anything,
Right.
These guys are both really good. Daniel is a lot better than I thought he would be. And again, I don't mean to say that I thought he was going to be terrible. He is taking a beating, but a lot of it is luck at this point. If he continues to play as well as he is, there's a chance that he could actually come back. I mean, I wouldn't count him out yet. For example, I have a small bet with a friend on the outcome of this match, and my bet is on Doug, and I laid 4-1 odds on it, which I think is about right. But I thought that I was getting a great deal. Now I think 4-1 is about right.
Yeah.
I thought the true odds were more like 8-1 or something.
Yeah.
Daniel has impressed, even though the cards haven't been very cooperative so far. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on now. Poker.
Yeah, I
was just gonna say, Derek.
Yeah,
poker could get us through the winter. There's a lot to enjoy.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm anxious to see how the whole World Series of Poker final table kind of spins out.
Yeah, it'll be on ESPN, and you of course you have your Twitch stream every Tuesday, and I know you're doing other days as well, but you always do it on Tuesdays. Your Dolphins look like they're going to make the playoffs. That could be fun.
What is
right?
happening? 2020 really is a joke. It's like, oh, now we go to the playoffs.
Yeah, the year that no one could go to the games. Right. Yeah.
The Twitch stuff's been a lot of fun. We did our charity stream 2 weeks ago, which was an amazing success. Shout out to all my viewers who helped make that happen. And then actually this past Tuesday, we just did this is insane. We did our 6th year anniversary stream. Wow. The fact that we've been streaming on Twitch for 6 years is kind of insane.
It's insane to me that Twitch is even 6 years old. It doesn't seem like it's that old.
I know. Somebody tweeted at me and said, who's been streaming on Twitch longer, you or Jamie Staples? And I realized, it probably literally is one of the two of us. And I'm pretty sure it's Jamie because I think he was the first person I ever watched on Twitch.
Okay.
But only by a couple months. So the fact that I'm the second oldest dude on the Twitch stream is scary and humbling all at the same time.
I know Somerville got in kind of early too.
Yeah, he was definitely he was the forerunner for sure. But I mean, I don't think he's streamed in, a year and a half.
He doesn't really do that anymore. He's over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He got sick of the trolls, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I live on the trolls, but he probably got sick of them.
Yeah, well, you get drunk and berate them, so that's a good time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I can't live without him.
Yeah. So, before this goes too long, why don't we get to some poker hands? I'm getting pumped up here, getting excited.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right.
All right, so I really need to start marking down what these tournaments are, because I know every time we are like, oh, what kind of tournament is this? And I just don't really always have the answer.
Yeah.
But I've been, I think I said this last time too, I've been playing primarily between like the $3 and $33 range. So this is probably somewhere, this is like a $5.50 or an $11, something like that, most likely.
Okay. And based on the names of the other players at the table, are they guys that you play with before, that you recognize? Anyone?
Yeah, so I don't actually recognize any of these names. I'm actually looking, so I have my HUD up, so I'm looking, and I don't have more than 100 hands on anybody at this table. So these are mostly going to be like randos.
Yeah. Small stakes, fun players.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And I'm guessing this is probably like an $11 buy-in or something like that. But we have clearly chipped up a bit, because we have 222 big blinds at the 100-200 level.
Wow. Yeah, that's a nice healthy stack early in the tournament.
Yeah, and we're coming in under the gun with ace jack offsuit. And it's kind of interesting, because I think I've actually I've embraced my inner nit, and I've started folding ace jack off from under the gun lately. Just because I'm finding it really awkward when you get like 4 callers, especially in the early stages, and you're just like, okay, well, I don't know where I'm at anymore post flop. It's just a really hard hand to play. Ace jack suited is a lot easier, but I think because we have 222 big blinds, I got no problem raising here.
Yeah,
so
I don't have a problem with raising here either, but I've mentioned this before. I'm probably tighter than most of our listeners from early position. Every book I ever read about poker is that position. Position's so important. You have to play more hands in position than you do out of position. And then you load up a solver, and they say we should be raising Queen Jack under the gun, Jack 10, like all these Broadway, especially suited Broadways under the gun should be in your first position raising range. I just don't know. Like, if you're going to play all those hands, then aren't you playing too many hands under the gun? So, I mean, I would fold a hand as strong as ace jack offsuit at a tough table, but given the description of this table, I have no problem with going ahead and getting involved. But you will be in some awkward spots, at some point with this hand.
Yeah. Luckily, it makes it easier to be in awkward spots when you have 222 big blinds.
Yeah, now the other stacks at the table, I guess the average stack at the table is around 100 big blinds, so it's not a short stack table by any stretch.
Yeah, and it almost makes it a little bit easier in my mind, because you don't really have any awkward spots where you're just gonna rejam stacks, or people who are gonna check jam flops or things like that, because everybody's kind of deep enough where you can make your standard continuation bet and then just play appropriately. So yeah, I think it just depends a lot on the table, and I'm kind of scrolling through my head right now. There's really nobody that's super aggro. It's very sort of pedestrian numbers as I scroll around. You get your 2014s, you get your 14-7s. It's just a very average table. So
okay.
Again, if I, like you said, if I were at a tough table, if this was a 215, bigger buy-in or something, I'd probably just fold this under the gun.
Yeah, and you're not really giving up much. If you fold it, you're not giving up much. But yeah, I think at this table, I would also get in there with it. So just putting some numbers on it. I know some people like to talk in terms of big blinds, but let's also give them the numbers. You have 44,000 in your stack at the 100-200 level. There's also a 24 ante, and the stacks at your table range from 9,000 up to 34,000. And of course, you are chip leader at this table, and possibly among the chip leaders in the tournament, I would assume.
Mm-hmm, yeah, I think that's probably right.
All right, so we raise it up.
Yeah, so we raise. It folds around to the hijack, who calls.
Okay, now you made it $4.99, which is about 2.5 times the big blind.
Yep.
And the hijack is the only caller.
Correct.
All right, so we're going to be heads up, out of position with the ace jack.
Yeah, and that's pretty much like my standard raise, mainly because I'm just like in multi-table mode. So I just usually go like min raise plus 99. That's just kind of my thing that I do.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's fine to just min raise there, or I mean, even this deep you could 3x honestly, but that's just kind of what I do. It's probably might not be GTO, but it is what it is.
I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, so we go heads up to a flop out of position, and we get the Jack 4-6 2-spade flop. So we flop top pair, top kicker. Very nice flop for us.
Yeah, for sure. We don't have a spade, though.
Correct.
Okay, so Jack 6-4 with 2 spades and Hero holding ace jack off with no spade. And I would assume this is a bet here, right? I mean, you could get tricky and check, especially if you think your opponent is likely to bluff with a lot of hands. But, even though you have top pair, top kicker, it's a little vulnerable. You never know what this guy's holding. You don't want to let him pick up a draw for free if he's got any spade in his hand. I think there's just a much stronger case to be made for putting this into your c-betting range than there is for checking it. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Especially because I think even everything from 7s through 10s are still going to call a bet here.
Oh, yeah, we could definitely get plenty of action from worse. You could even be lucky enough for him to be sitting there with Queen Jack or something, and then you'd really be kicking yourself if you didn't bet and get value for your hand. So
yeah,
and of course, a pair. If he's got a 6 in his hand, if he called you with something like 7-6 or Ace-6 suited or something like that, he'll call you. He could have a gut shot with something like 8-7, right? So there's plenty of hands that can give you action. I don't know about 3 streets, but at least let's get some action now. So What do we do?
Yeah, so I'm actually remembering now that this hand is actually from my 6th anniversary stream. The reason I know that is because I had made this agreement that I was going to make all of my C-bets with lots of 6s in them.
Okay.
So we bet the evil 666 on the flop.
Yeah.
into a pot of 15-14, and we get a call.
Okay, so I guess he's not Catholic.
I didn't scare him away with the devil bet.
All right, so the devil bet gets called, and we're still feeling great about this. We have ace jack on a jack high board. You make a bet that is what is that? About 40% of the pot? Yeah, that's right. And so then he calls, and what happens on the turn?
And we get the 2 of spades, which is definitely not our favorite card, because certainly flush draws, I think we can say, are in his range. But I don't feel like it's a card we really have to panic about too much.
I mean, you could bet, and if he raises, you could strongly consider folding. You will get outplayed sometimes with that strategy, but like you said, it's like probably something like an $11 tournament. There aren't that many players that'll turn something like, what could he call with on the flop and then turn it into a bluff here? Like, I'm having trouble coming up with a hand that would bluff raise you. So
yeah, I think even if he has 8s or 9s or something, he's either just going to fold or he's going to just flat.
Yeah.
If we decide to go ahead and bet again.
Yeah, if he's got pocket 8s with a spade, he'll probably call this bet, right? So
yeah,
and that's fine because we're still ahead. So cool.
Yeah, the only thing I can see him maybe raising us with that we either beat or chop with is if he happens to have ace jack with the ace of spades, or he has king jack with the king of spades, or something like that he can kind of turn into a bluff here. But I think most people are honestly just going to call those hands.
Yeah.
Because they're not really trying to blow us off of our bluffs, So I feel like we can just bet here and sort of reevaluate a bunch of rivers without really being too afraid.
Yeah, and the solver will probably say this is a mix, right? So if you want to bet some of the time and check some of the time, which also does allow him to take a shot at the pot if he has something like pocket eights with a spade, like we said, or if he, best case scenario, he has a worse jack and he wants to bet it for value when we check. But yeah, if you do check this turn, I think you need to call him at least once. So
yeah, I agree.
I would just like you. Usually, I think I would mostly keep the lead here and just bet again. It really only gets hairy if he raises us here on 4th Street, because then it's, oh boy, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I mean, the 5 tray got there, but we're going to worry about everything, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there's 28.46 in the middle, and we do go ahead and c-bet. I'm actually kind of curious what you think about this c-bet size. We bet 1,054, which is about third of the pot. And I don't know if I really like this, because I'd almost rather just charge the spades, if he has anything X of spades, king, if he decided to float us with king, queen, or with the king of spades or something. I don't know. I would rather just charge those. And I think we also can put ourselves in uncomfortable situations here by betting so small, because he could look at this as weakness and just go, well, this looks really weak. I'm just going to put in like a little raise here to like 2,800 and put him in a really awkward spot. Like I don't know what I'm trying to accomplish with this 1,054 bet, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and especially when your bet almost doesn't even deny him the odds he needs to call with a flush draw. So yeah, that's another case for making it a little bigger. I mean, it's not terrible, because you do get more action from those pocket eights, pocket sevens hands. They might be curious enough now to actually call you again, where they would otherwise have folded if you put too much heat on here on the turn. But that's a pretty small part of his range overall, and so I think that we want to try to charge the draws, and we want to get action from hands like Jack 10, Queen Jack, that just aren't really going to fold to any bet. I mean, it is unlikely because we know where 2 jacks are, but a lot of times just being sort of optimistic is the way to go. But yeah, I'm not going to beat you up over this bet. I mean, it does have its merits, right? The other way you could do it is to check here, but yeah, I think betting is better than checking, and probably going a little bit bigger. One thing I will mention is from watching a lot of Andrew Brokus videos recently on TPE, generally speaking, turn bets can be a little larger as a percentage than flop bets. Now, obviously, that's a gross generalization. There will always be exceptions to this, but there are just a lot of spots where you want to kind of size up on the turn, especially if you do an extra small flop bet, so you kind of get the action you want on the flop, and then you punish if he's optimistic and he calls with some kind of backdoor draw on the flop just because you bet so small. Then by betting big on the turn, you actually punish the flop call more with the bigger bet on the turn, because now he has to throw away whatever equity he has because you overcharge him. So
yeah,
that's something you consider. But yeah, again, I don't think this is a bad play. You bet 1,000 into 28. I don't really have a problem with it.
Yeah, I'm almost wondering if so. I should mention this opponent is running over 57 hands, so not a huge sample, but he's running 14-7, so he's quite tight, which almost makes me feel a little bit better about the smaller size, because I don't think we get him to call with worse hands very often by barreling on the turn. But I also don't think he's the kind of opponent who's going to bluff raise the turn. So I actually, with that in mind, I kind of like this. If this guy was running like 30-27 or something, I might be like, if I bet small here, he could like bluff me off my hand. So yeah, I don't mind it as much as I think I originally did, but I think we could, generally speaking, go a little bit bigger, even if it's like, 13.50 or something. Just, charge those draws a little bit more, like you said, and maybe get some more value out of 8s or 9s or something. Yes. But I don't think we can go too big without just scaring him away.
Yeah, but I like 13 or 15 a little bit more, especially because he might be optimistic about his likelihood of getting called on the river. But when we don't have a spade, we're never calling any bet on the river if it comes a spade. So just kind of, thinking in terms of trying to make your opponent make a mistake. So if he makes an optimistic call, assuming, well, I also have the implied odds. If my flush comes in, maybe I can get another bet off of Derek then. But you, of course, not having a spade, you're not going to call any bet on the river. So that makes his call on the turn a bigger mistake. So a bigger bet allows him to make a bigger mistake if, in fact, he has a spade in his hand. But, yeah, overall, like I said, I don't really mind the bet. But something you kind of hinted at that I want to highlight here is smaller bets are easier for your opponents to bluff raise. So, in other words, if you made like a pot-sized bet on the turn, just to, not that you would ever do that, but to illuminate the point, if you will, a pot-sized bet on the turn would have been like close to 3,000, and your opponent only has like another 10,000 behind, so he would never bluff that size bet. But this smaller bet gives him a little bit more room to wiggle and get creative if he's the type to do that. Now, over 57 hands, he doesn't seem like he's all that tight. He seems kind of like a nitty rag. Those are kind of like Derek Tenbusch numbers, 14-7.
Exactly.
So he's like, it's like playing against yourself here. So he's probably not going to find the raise button too often, but certainly against a different opponent, a bigger bet would be preferable also for that reason, right?
Yeah, good point.
Okay, so we bet, and what happens?
And we get a call.
Okay, that's way better than getting a raise. I'm still pretty
Yes.
comfortable with our pair of jacks here. So what happens next?
So we get the king of hearts on the river. So that's going to make the board 4-6, jack, deuce, king, 3 spades. There's 49-54 in the middle. We obviously have a lot of chips. Our opponent has 12.5k behind. So there's 5k in the middle. He has 12.5k. It's a really weird card because it's not a card like it's, you know, we obviously like hate a spade. You know, we probably hate anything that straightens out, like maybe a 3 or a 5. Although I don't really see this particular villain playing very many of those low cards. But it's just not a great card for us, right?
Yeah, because one of the hands that we could definitely get more action from was the King Jack. You know, I've been talking this whole time that a big part of our value targeting range is worse jacks, and one of them just caught up and took over. So that's not good. But I agree, we'd rather see this card than any spade, obviously. But yeah, I don't think we have a bet anymore. I mean, I was thinking, especially with your sizing on the flop and turn, I was thinking 3 streets with this hand.
Right.
But now I don't want to do that because it just doesn't feel like a value play anymore. I think, well, maybe it is, though. Maybe we just bet fold here on the river. You know, you bet 1,000 on the turn. If you bet like, I don't know, say like 1,300 on the river and fold to a raise. But then you could still get action that way from Jack 10, Jack Queen, although they might be able to find the fold easier now because they have to worry about not only being outkicked, but whether you just caught up on the river somehow. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess overall it feels like you could do a small bet planning to fold to a raise, but I think I prefer checking and see what he wants to do.
Yeah, I think that's where I lean as well. Because if he does, you know, there's just not a lot of like missed draws. You know, it's like basically like 5-7, and that's about it. Like draw wise, I mean, so you know he could have like worse jacks, but the problem is he's just going to probably check most of those back. And I don't know if, I mean, I guess we could get a call from like Jack 10 or Queen Jack or something like that. So it's like I'm very torn between like betting for some value and then just folding to a raise, or just letting him bet his missed draws. But again, there's just not many. Like I'm really torn here. I know exactly what I do because I did look at this hand before we started, and I think I sort of like it, but I'm not sure I love it.
Okay, yeah. So you know when you're saying a guy is 14-7, but he's only got 57 hands in your database, so we can't exactly rely on that 14-7, but it does give you a little snapshot of how he's played in the few hands that you have on him. There just aren't that many draws that he's going to have. I mean, what does he call with on the flop? If he has a flush draw on the flop, he actually has a flush now.
Yep.
So that's a problem, and he slow played it on the turn, opting to not raise you on the turn when he has the nuts or whatever. So that's kind of a bad scenario. If he has a gut shot, this player probably would have folded gut shot, I think, usually. Just based on the little bit of information we have about him. I don't think he's calling with every gut shot. Maybe give him a few combos for balance, right? Yeah. He would never have a straight because he would have to start with 5 tray, which is not in the 14% VPIP range, right? So we're not worried about that hand. He could have flopped a set and slow played it. But overall, I'm having trouble putting him on a misdraw, unless he has a pair with it, maybe like a 7-6 with the 7 of spades, right? But that hand is not about to bluff us. That hand's going to check back and hope my sixes are good, right? So what bluffs does he have that we can check and hope that we can induce a bluff from?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like the magic question. Like, the thing is like, I'm also trying to think of what we bet that we ever get called by that we beat. It basically is just Jack X, I think.
Yeah,
from this particular opponent. And we obviously have a Jack, so he just doesn't have a ton of those. So I think I lean towards checking because there's just such a small value target. Like, there's really nothing for us to target a call from. Like, ace 6 or something. Like, I'm like reaching to find something. So I guess I would rather just like check here and probably not fold very often at all unless he just like overjams or something.
Well,
I think,
if you check planning to either call or fold, it really comes down to a math problem. So is that what you did? You checked?
I did.
Okay, so let's figure. I'm assuming he's going to bet here. It wouldn't be much of a hand to discuss, right?
Yeah, so he bets 32.72 into 5K. So basically like 3/4 pot, basically.
Well, it's not 3/4, right? It's.
Oh, do I not have that right?
Yeah, it's more like 60%.
All right.
Yeah, so that's kind of an important question because, as I mentioned just a moment ago, these kind of situations are actually just basic algebra, really. So if your opponent bets the pot, then you're getting 2-1 on a call, and if he bets half the pot, you're getting 3-1 on a call. So we're getting 2 point something to 1 here on a call. And so is your hand going to be good? Let's just make it simple. 1 time out of 3, that would be profitable, right?
Mm-hmm. And God, I hate that this opponent is so tight because it kind of makes me think it's not.
Yeah, he
won't be good that often.
Given the fact that we are having trouble coming up with bluffs in his range, and given the fact that he would check back a lot of hands, like if he has just like a Jack 10 or some kind of pair with a flush draw that missed, given all that and the fact that he's 14-7, I don't think you're good 30% of the time. I don't think so. I think we have a fold here. And that sucks because then if we fold, we'll never know whether top pair, top kicker was good on the flop or the turn, or whether we got rivered or what happened. And we were talking about this a few weeks ago when Alex was our guest on the podcast. People want to know, they don't like to not know. And,
which is a reason to bet more rivers, I think, right? Like we as players should be betting more rivers with value because people want to see it.
Yeah, they want to see it. That's a really good point. And also, bet folding is usually more profitable if you can really rely on the fact that you're not getting bluff raised a lot. It's more profitable to bet fold than it is to check, because so many players will just check back their medium strength made hands. So you lose that value from those hands like the Jack 10, Jack Queen. Like those hands really can't bet now. Not that the king showed up on the end. It's a rare $11 player that's going to be like, you know what, I'm going to go to Value Town with my Jack 10 now.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Like, it would be very out of character.
Yeah,
for
so
guy to go ham here,
Yeah.
or with 6x. I mean, I guess the rare missed draws that we mentioned, maybe, but there's just not many of them.
Yeah, we're having trouble finding those draws because we don't think he would call even your small sized bet on the flop. I don't think gets called a lot by a player that runs 14-7 and kind of has a generally nitty style. Even if he had something like, let's say, I mean, I'm having trouble even putting him on anything that he might have. Yeah,
because I think most of his like middling pair, like 7s, 8s, 9s, 10, like those probably just all check back here.
They're not going to bet. Yeah, they won't bet. They're not going to turn it. They're not going to turn a showdown type of hand into a bluff. You just don't see that a lot in these $11 tournaments. You will see that at the higher stakes. I mean, that's an advanced play. Yeah. It's like I was worried that my 7s weren't any good, but I wanted to also kind of merge my range. So I'm sometimes I'm just going to make a big bet with the 7s and try to push Derek off of a jack sometimes. That's kind of representing the king. It's a more advanced strategy, not something you see in tournaments like this. So I think we can check, and if he would have bet smaller, I'd be more tempted to call. But given that we need to be good so often, and I just don't think we are, I would consider this a fold and probably not lose too much sleep over whether I got outplayed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you are correct, and I think that I don't remember this particular hand from live action, but my guess is that I went with the check very much intending to call regardless of what he did, and I think that's a mistake, to be honest. So I can't see my timing tells or anything like that, but I do call the 32-72, and he turns over the pocket 7s, which is really interesting from this opponent.
That's good.
I think there's kind of two interesting things to pull from that, I think. One of which is when you look at your HUD and you have 57 hands on somebody, remember that's only 5 or 6 orbits. Like, they might have just taken a couple hands off. They might have been another hand, other hands at other tables and weren't really focused on this one. They could still be an aggressive opponent. I think you need to get up into the couple hundred hands plus range to really start to kind of figure out where somebody's at.
I wish we could confirm, Derek. I wish we could confirm that this is a $10 tournament because this is a pretty advanced play
I know.
for this level,
Yeah.
and especially if it's a name that you didn't recognize. I mean, you're on the site quite a bit, so you probably know who the best regs on the site are. This is just a play that I wouldn't expect too many of these guys to make. Now, maybe a small bet, like a scared bet, but he went pretty big. He's basically bluffing. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, to me, if I have 7s here, I'm checking back all day and going, please don't hit your flush, don't have, or whatever. I'm so happy to get to just check my hand on the river. I'm not sure what he's trying to accomplish with that bet on the river. He might have just been oh, well, he probably has 9s or something, and I can get him into fold here or something. But yeah,
right.
it was definitely not the bet I expected from him at all.
Yeah, you're right. I'm saying he turned his hand into a bluff, right? But perhaps he doesn't even know why he bet the river.
Yeah.
Just because you checked and he's like, I guess I'll bet. Sometimes it's not some advanced strategy. It just happens to be an unexpected play at an unexpected time. But did he have a spade?
He did have a spade.
Okay.
Yeah, so he did turn a flush draw, although not a very exciting one, obviously.
Right. But something, yeah.
But I mean, I have to this is the great thing about poker, right? In his defense, I should probably be folding here. He probably should have won this hand.
Yeah, he wins it against me. I'm not sticking around.
Yeah,
I wanted to fold.
Yeah, I honestly think he played his hand pretty well, especially with me checking on the river. I look maybe scared's not the right word, but I look cautious. It's a great card in a way for him to sort of turn into a bluff. I think I would just rather he had something where he can't win.
Yeah.
If he had 5-8 suited or something here, and he just wanted to turn. I'd almost rather he do it with that hand than this hand, because this hand actually has some weird showdown value.
Agreed. And from your seat, just from a theoretical perspective, in terms of GTO, when you check the river, you need to have some bluff catchers in your range, and certainly Ace-Jack might be included in your, combos of what some of your bluff catchers might be. I usually think about exploitative play And even though we only had 57 hands on him, the evidence was mounting that he was basically a nitty tight guy, and that we both thought he would generally be checking back with medium strength hands like sevens, and that's what led me to wanting to fold. But perhaps he just saw the king and said, I don't know if these sevens are good, but I'm going to rep that king because it looks like Derek, who has now bet small on the flop, pretty darn small again on the turn, and now check the river. Like, you don't look particularly strong, right?
Right.
So maybe he just pounced on the moment, but we're not in his head. We don't know. Sometimes they just press the right button at the right time, but unfortunately for him, you pressed the wrong button at the right time. You end up winning the pot anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I love these kind of spots. You know, not every hand we talk about has to be a royal flush against quads, right? Like, it's fun to just, I don't have that much. I'm out of position. You know, it kind of highlights the first point you made about the hand too, Derek, which is sometimes I just fold ace jack under the gun because I'm going to be out of position. The best hand I can really hope to have realistically is one pair, and playing one pair from out of position, especially against tougher opponents, can be incredibly tricky. So it all kind of goes back to why even get involved with this hand in the first place. But your answer would be because I'm freaking Killingbird and I'm going to call him.
That's right. Who knows how many beers I had that night. Don't try to bluff a drunk Killingbird.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, that was a good one. Now, what's going on with your Twitch? I know that some of you might not realize this, but we've actually been Twitch streaming, live streaming this whole podcast recording. Are you getting any love in the chat? Are people watching? Do they even care? What's happening?
So we have about 18 viewers, which is pretty cool. We just got a host from our friend Quest J. So yeah, you know, it's kind of cool. I just decided to kind of do it on a whim, honestly. Like I had come back from the distillery and I wanted to have a couple of beers, so I thought, well, if we're gonna have beers, we might as well just do it on Twitch. But you know, maybe this is something we'll do in the future if people listening to this are like, oh shoot, I missed that, because I just tweeted it out like 2 hours ago or whatever. So yeah, if people are listening, you're like, oh, do that again next week or next time I'm on. I'm happy to do it. It's kind of fun, you know. I'll try to do it where I can actually get the hands up on the screen and stuff, because that would probably be more interesting. But yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, before we go, can people still donate to your charity drive? And why don't you, like, if so, can we hear a little more about it?
Sure. Yeah. So it's I think I mentioned it on streams past or on podcasts past, but it's a local breed specific animal rescue that my wife and I work with called Triangle Beagle Rescue, and we were fortunate enough to raise over $3,000 or almost $3,000, just under $3,000 for the Triangle Beagle Rescue this year. But yeah, if you love dogs or you love animals or you just want to support me and my efforts, you can head over to TriBeagles, TRIBeagles.com, and you can make a donation right there and just say, yo, KB sent me. They'll know who I am, because I actually ran into the lady who writes all the thank you notes the other day for the rescue, and she was like, I had to write so many thank you notes. She's like 78 of them or something.
Oh, that's amazing. And it was
and
like,
I was like, well, I was like, well, I'm glad to keep you busy. Thank you for all your help.
Yeah, well, you know, $3,000, that's a lot of money for an animal rescue. They can really put that to good use. But, you know, if you're in the spirit of giving this time of year and you're thinking about doing something good, if you just happen to be a KB lover or a dog lover, or, you know, in my opinion, there are dog lovers and then there are beagle lovers. Like, the beagle breed has its own kind of particular fan club. Have you noticed that too?
Yeah, they do get pretty serious, especially down here where there's a lot of like abandoned hunting dogs. Like the people who love beagles really love beagles. But we get plenty of dog lovers who come out and support too. So
yeah. Well, thanks for joining me, Derek. I would love to do some more Twitch stream podcasting with you going forward. I think that was a great idea. Next time we'll give people a little more notice so they can plan on joining, and then you can hear the podcast as it's happening rather than later on after we clean it up and make a few edits and cut out Derek's curse words and stuff.
Yeah, maybe we even get some hands from the viewers or something like that. That'd be fun.
That would be fun, like a more interactive. That's a great idea. We could do a more interactive podcast with the Twitch viewers. That would be really fun. Yeah. So look for that going forward. Of course, check out twitch.tv/Killingbird each and every Tuesday night. And what other kind of schedule are you doing these days? Just whenever you can, or what's going on?
Yeah, I've been streaming pretty regularly. Again, kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, like we're sort of back into lockdown mode here in North Carolina, so I haven't had a lot of time to like do much. Like there's not really anything to go out and do. So I've been trying to stream pretty heavy and sort of keep myself occupied. So usually 3 or 4 nights a week. Always Tuesdays and Sundays, but then some other random days thrown in there.
And if you subscribe to his stream, then you can be notified when he's on. And I've popped in a few times myself. I think it's really fun to watch you multi-table and drink, and you're very entertaining the way you interact with everyone in the chat, and you just you kind of put the fun back in poker, and everybody knows how I feel about that's what we need. So thank you, sir, for your service. How's that?
I appreciate it.
All right.
Hey, and if I don't see you before the holidays get here, man, have a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and maybe even a good New Year's. We'll see if we can actually do something on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah. Well, same to you. Happy Holidays, and for Derek Killingbird Tenbusch, and for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, happy holidays. I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you all so much for listening.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas plays. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Lock in intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. I wanna roll with her, a hard pair we will be. While little gambling is fun when you're with me. I love it. Russian roulette is not the same without a gun. And baby, when it's love, it's not rough, it isn't fun. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to